What's up guys, my name is Luke and welcome back to Motion Design. So I've been gone for a while, but I'm back at it. Sorry about that, by the way. But yeah, today's tutorial we're going to be making explosions. I've been doing explosions in Houdini and you have a lot of control in Houdini, and I was never able to get that type of control with Cinema 4D, but I've been messing around with it a little bit more recently, trying to get an explosion that actually works well in Cinema 4D. And I think I found a way that works pretty well using the basic emitter and using that to drive our pyro simulation. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty easy tutorial, to be honest. We'll get a cool result, but I don't think it's particularly complicated in the things that we're going to be doing. So yeah, I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. And if you do, like and subscribe. If you want the project file, it'll be up on Patreon, and then there's a bunch of other stuff on Patreon if you guys are interested in that. But yeah, let's get into it. Cool, so we're going to start out by creating a basic emitter. So let's go to simulations and then basic emitter. Let's change this to a circle and then just change the orientations that we're facing upwards. We're going to be doing a pretty large scale explosion, so the basic size for the emitter is perfect. But if you're wanting a smaller explosion or a bigger one, you might want to change the size of it and then change the radius of the actual particles itself. But for this one, we're going to be just using as it is, just default. Cool. So right now, if we press play, we just need to give it a second because Cinema 4D takes a bit before it starts. We want to go into the properties. We'll just first go into mission, change this to shots. We're going to go into the properties over here, and let's make this like 3,500. So it's going to be quite a fast over there. Let's change this and add some variation, maybe 1,500. And then we're going to drop this down this direction over here. And let's turn up the spread to maybe like 20. So now if we zoom out a bit, we can kind of see what's happening. We get a little explosion like that. So at the moment, they're just going continuously and we don't really want that. So we want to go over here to the lifespan, turn this on, and let's turn this to something around like 5, and maybe at variations of 3. So we just get this fast little, yeah, just like that. That's what we want. Cool. So let's group this and call this explosion. I feel like I spelled that wrong. Cool. And so now we got that. Let's go onto our particle group over here. Right click and say pyro emitter. Cool. So let's see what happens. Cool. Now we get a little explosion. It's kind of cool, but it's not really what we want. We want a lot more detail in this. So we're going to do something quite basic, and we're just going to turn on fuel. And this is going to do most of the work. And now you can see we have a nice kind of looking explosion over here. I'm going to change this from continuous to frame range, just because I felt like it worked better. Just having a little bit more control over when it's happening and how many frames it's actually emitting from the fuel. And yeah, actually at the moment, I think this looks pretty cool. So right now, the one thing that we want to change is that at the moment, this is looking quite smooth, and especially when it comes to large scale explosions, it's not smooth. There's always a lot of detail in there. So what we want to do is add some turbulence. So we can go and add turbulence over here, turn this up and just, make a small scale like this, and we can get a bit more detail over there. But I'm going to go into our project settings. So let's go Control D. We're going to go to pyro. We're going to go to general, and we're going to go to turbulence over here. So I'm going to turn this up quite a bit, and I'm going to reduce the octave scale and this incremental one over here. Also just turn up the frequency a bit. Cool. And now you can see we're getting a lot more detail in this. So yeah, now when we're looking far away, it's a lot more detailed, so it makes it feel a lot bigger, which is what we want. Cool. So while we're in our project settings over here, let's go and do some just basic things. So at the moment, you can see the voxels over here, and we don't really want that. So there's two ways of going about this. The one way is to reduce the voxel size, but by doing that, it means that the actual size of the cache is going to be huge. So I exported mine at 5 centimeter voxel size, and it was around 60 gigabytes. So if you're bringing this down to like 2 or 3, that's going to be like 100 gigabytes. So yeah, just keep that in mind when messing with it. But you will get a more detailed explosion by reducing the voxel size. But another thing that we can do to get rid of this, so say now you're happy with this, is that we can go down into our destiny over here, density, and we can turn up our density smoothing factor. So what this will do is that it will just kind of like a post-process smooth out the actual voxels over there to make it look a little bit smoother. So we'll mess with this a little bit more later on. I'm just winging it over here. It might work, might not work. We'll have to see when we get to the rendering stage. Cool, so at the moment, I think this looks pretty good for our first part of our explosion. Let's put this in here, and let's turn these off. Cool, so let's go and make a secondary explosion. So let's go to basic emitter over here. We're going to go to emission, change this to a circle. Again, rotate this 90 degrees. Change this to shots. I'm going to make this 200 in accounts. Let's go to properties and do a similar thing. So 3000 over here, 15 over here. And if we press play, it's going to shoot up. We don't want that. We want it to go outwards because we're going to be making a shockwave for this one. So let's go and set this to radial and press play. And cool. Yeah, now we get a nice little shockwave. Let's turn on our lifespan. I'm going to set this to 10 with like a variation of 3 because we want this to last a little bit longer. Yeah, I think that works quite nicely. We might need to adjust the speed later on down the line just to make it feel a little bit more realistic. So yeah, mess around with the speed, but I think for now I'm going to leave it as this, and we can always change that later if we need. So let's go on over here and say simulations, pyro emitter. We don't want temperature in this one. So density is the smoke, temperature is the flame, and so with the shockwaves usually don't have any flame in them. We just want the pure smoke that's going to be emitting. So let's turn this off and press play. And nice, now we get this little shockwave there. I want to change this to 20 because we want a bit more density just to be a little bit thicker. The other thing that I want to do is I want to change the radius to about 1.5, maybe 2 centimeters. And you'll see now that it's a bit thicker, the smoke. Cool, so at the moment that's kind of cool, but I don't know, it doesn't really work that well. But I'm going to leave it like this because what we're going to do now is that we're going to add a secondary force. So for our force over here, I'm going to be making a torus. So let's go to frame like 12 over here. Let's increase the radius, do something like that. So let's set a keyframe on the radius and the ring radius and the pipe radius. Go over here and let's set these both to 0. So now we're going to get something like this where it's going to shoot outwards. Let's go over here, simulations, collider, and let's turn these on and see what this looks like. Yeah, so now you can see we're getting this really cool effect over here where it feels a lot more natural, and it happens so fast that, I mean, it happens in like 10 frames over there, that even though the first few frames do look a little bit generic and kind of trash, your eye won't catch it, and this is what you're going to be seeing. Cool, so I think that looks pretty cool. Let's go and add a duplicate of this, and we want to take the keyframes. Oh my gosh. Let's select keyframes over here and then offset it by a few. Let's see what that looks like. So we get our first one and then our second one. So it's kind of going to be a double impact. You don't have to do that. I like the look of it. Also, another reason for that is that with our other explosion, with the fuel, there's the initial, explosion over here. And then there's the secondary heat that's rising. So that's kind of why I added the 2 different shockwaves. I think it just looks quite nice. Let's see what it looks like together. See if this is working. And then another 2. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Might need to change the timing of this a bit, but for now, I think this is going to work fine. Let's just add a ground over here so that this is actually colliding with something. Let's add a plane, increase the size, go simulations, collider, and before we're able to press play, both of our emitters are directly in the planes. So let's grab both of these and just move them up a few centimeters. Something like that should be good. And now when we press play, let's just make sure that we're not going through. Sweet. We can hide the plane for now. And yeah, let's just turn these back on. Cool. I think that looks pretty cool. The one thing that I can really see as a problem is that our smoke is starting to dissipate a lot sooner than we want. So we're going to go Control D. We're going to go back down to our density, and let's turn down the dissipation to maybe something like 4. So this just means that the smoke will linger a little bit longer. It's good. So now the smoke's lasting a little bit longer, which is what we want. If you want it to last even longer, just turn this down further. I'll leave that up to you guys to mess around with and see what looks nice. I kind of want to offset these just a bit more. Sweet. I think that works fine for now. Yeah, if you guys are wanting to see what this looks like in real time, just go over here and say make preview. It will just use the CPU and render out what it's going to look like just with like the movement. I think it's a good way to get a vibe of what this is looking like without actually caching it. So I think this is good for now. Let's turn this off and let's go and make our third emitter. So let's go over here and group these. Let's call this Upwave. And then let's go simulations, basic emitter, and let's do the exact same thing. So rotate this to face upwards. I think I'll make that 85. Just go 90 degrees over here. We're going to change this to shots. I'm going to reduce this to about 50. Properties, maybe 1000 with the variation of 500. And let's turn up the spread to something like 50. Let's see. Cool. I think that works quite nicely. So what these are going to be is that we have our main explosion, we have our shockwave going out, and then I just want little bits that are going to be flying off just to add some like variation to it and some like layers just to make it look a little bit more realistic. Cool. So let's go over here. Before we add any pyro to this, let's go to simulations, forces, and then gravity. So I want these ones to shoot out, but then also start falling downwards. So yeah, something like that I think works quite nicely. Let's just turn our plane on so that it can collide with our plane. Oh wait, it's not going to collide. Let's go simulation, modifiers, collide, put this in here. Sweet. I think that's works fine for now. You can also just turn off the bounce, turn up the friction. Sweet. I think this is fine for now. We'll have to mess around with it a little bit more when we have everything else. Let's add a pyro emitter, and I think we can keep it at default. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Let's also just go to the gravity over here. Maybe change this to like 500, just so it's a little bit slower. Yeah, because I mean, if we're talking about a large scale explosion, that looks really small. So the slower it is, the bigger it feels. Let's see what this all looks like together. Let's group these and call these, I mean, they're not sparks, but I can't think of the correct terminology at the moment. Cool. Let's turn on the rest. And let's see what this looks like together. So we can hide the torsos because we don't really need to see them. Okay, I think I'm going to go about it a little bit differently because at the moment these things are still shooting out quite a lot. So I think I'm going to go over here and change this to the default. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the scene scale over here and set a keyframe at around 30 and then around frame 35. I'm going to bring this down to like 0.3 just so that there's the initial explosion that's really fast and then it slows down just to make it feel a little bit bigger and a little bit more impactful. So let's see what that looks like. Also, I like the trajectory of these things that are coming out over here. I think we might need to make the time scale go from 25. Cool, now it starts moving a lot slower. We might need to adjust that a little bit more, but I think for now, this is working quite nicely. I think I've shown you guys enough that you can kind of art direct it a little bit more yourselves to get it to look how you want it to look like. Actually, with one more thing before we move on, with these little sparks over here, let's go to our basic emitter and change the radius and add some variation. Let's just do 1, 1, just so that we have a little bit of variation in the size of these projectiles that are coming out. And projectiles are a bit weird than sparks. Yeah, I mean, I think this is looking pretty cool. Let's go and see what this is gonna look like in our render. Also, at this point, I mean, save your project file. I mean, it can get a little bit intense and then it might crash. But yeah, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do a rookie mistake over here, but you guys should save. Cool. So let's press play and see what this is looking like. So at the moment, we can't see anything. So we're gonna add a material onto this. Let's go create material. I'm gonna choose a pyro volume. Let's put this onto our pyro output over here. And we should see something. Sweet. Cool. So there is our explosion. Let's go a little bit sooner so we can get the... Okay. Yeah, so you'll see when I'm pressing play now, it doesn't work. You can just reapply the material and that we'll have something over here. Sweet. Let's just, for now, put this a redshift sun and sky, and let's turn this on just so we can actually see what we're working with. So at the moment, this looks kind of cool, but it's not very, I don't know, realistic looking. Also, our smoke is dissipating way faster than we want, but we can fix that. Let's just go here. Okay, so let's go to our pyro. Let's reduce our dissipation to about 2, and we might need to reduce our voxel size, but I think for now I'm going to keep it at 5. I want to get the basic shape of it down, and then we can reduce the voxel size. And maybe also just change this to like 1. Okay, that might be a little bit too much smoke. Let's change this back to 10 and see if that's... Can I change this to a smaller increments? 1, 2. Uh, 5. Okay, let's reapply this and see what we're working with. Okay, for now we can just leave it like that. Let's go into our power output over here and let's start messing around with these a lot more. So I'm going to increase the scatter coefficient over here. This is just going to mean that more light is going to come into it. So you can see if I bring this down, the smoke becomes a lot darker, but the higher you go it up, it becomes a little bit lighter. And I think I like the look of that a little bit more. We can also, I mean, I'll get to that just now. Let's go over here into the advanced tab and let's play around with this to just increase the scale. I mean, yeah, like the density a bit more, which is kind of bringing back some detail into the smoke over here. I think that's fine for now. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, something like that should be good. Let's go back into our scale over here. Maybe set this to like 1.5, maybe 2, just so that we get a little bit more heat coming through. Also, we're going to need to turn up the smoothing because we can see these voxels over here. So let's quickly change that. Let's go to density, and let's actually just bump this up to like, I don't know, 93. Let's see if that fixes our issue. Oh no, you might be frozen. Okay, but no, we're not frozen. Okay, I'm just gonna stop it. That's why you save boys and girls. Let's add this back. Sweet, and now you can see we don't have those voxels anymore. Although, why is the renderer taking so long? Could be because I'm recording through OBS as well, but at least at the moment it looks like we don't have those jagged edges over there, and that's just the smoothing factor over there. Cool, so let's go back into our pyro over here and let's mess around with the absorption to get something that looks a little bit nicer. Gonna reduce this a little bit more, just a little bit more flames come through, just so that we're able to get a little bit more detail in here. And so yeah, at the moment I think this looks pretty cool. I mean, if we turn this off, we can, obviously lighting plays a big role in this, but yeah, one thing that I found is that the default look for this, I don't know, it doesn't feel very realistic to me. It can feel realistic, I mean, especially in here I think it looks quite nice, but there's too much red in them and I don't really like that. So what I usually do when I'm trying to make a more realistic looking explosion is that I'll change this to like a color ramp over here, and let's change this to something like a yellowy color, something like that. Maybe a little bit more orange, maybe more. It's one thing I hate with this new version of Cinema 4D is that like the color that's over here is not the color that's over here. You need to turn this off and then you'll get a more accurate color, but it's just really annoying because of ACES. Yeah, we can change that by going into our scene settings and just changing this color space to ACES CG, and now we're in the ACES workflow, and now the colors should match directly to what we're doing. It is a bit annoying, to be honest, but yeah, I quite like the look of this color over here. And now what we can do is we can clamp this to be kind of like what we want. So just gonna reduce this a little bit more. Yeah, and I think that's looking quite nice over there. Obviously you guys are gonna need better lighting in the scene because at the moment it doesn't look very realistic. Let me just add just like a random area light over here and just bring this down. But I mean, yeah, you can already see if we add a bit of light to the scene, it's starting to look a lot better. You just need to go out and light it yourselves. I just want to show you the main explosions. If you're interested in like the lighting of how I did in my scene, it's up on Patreon. But I think for now I'm just going to focus in on the main explosion. But I mean, yeah, over here you can already see that this looks pretty cool. Yeah, so at the moment, if you're going for a more realistic explosion, this is how you do it. Maybe mess around with the colors a little bit more, but I think this type of like deep orange works really nicely for explosions. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Another thing that we can do is that let's make a duplicate of this in case you like it. Let's put this over here and let's turn back on our sun and sky. And we're going to make this look a little bit more fun. So we can change this to different colors. I mean, we can go here and make this a purple. And now the smoke itself will have this absorption color of purple. Well, at least it should. Oh, it's probably because the scatter is too high. Let's let's go here. We can go add some blue in here. And that does nothing as well, which is odd because it should. Am I still with the wrong material? Okay, dude, I was just messing with the wrong material. Rookie mistakes over there, hey. Yeah, so, I mean, we can make this look a little bit more interesting. We can make it like, I mean, I'm sure you saw in the beginning of the tutorial, I had like an explosion of how I did it, where it's a little bit more colorful. And it's kind of how I did it. You add in some different colors over here, but you can also clamp these values down a bit more if you want to, you know, refine it a little bit more. But yeah, mess around with the colors, create something cool. I feel like I've shown you guys enough that you're able to make the basic explosion. You know how to texture it now. Now just go about and make it your own. Yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Sorry it's been so long, but I hope it was a fun one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you want the project files, they're all on Patreon. And yeah, I'll see you guys around. Peace.